Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. We are looking at contracts in corporate finance. We have a topic to deal with contracts. We must be able at the end of it all to explain what contracts are. The next we will discuss the role of contracts in society and the sources of law. Then we'll proceed to look at the three basic contract types. Then we'll discuss what basic contract taxonomy is. Then explain how the contracts are formed. Then finally, we'll look at tort versus contract remedies. Some of the learning objectives that we need to cover here, I think about two of them should have been covered in the commercial and business law, I'm sure. Basically, we may not go in details from the corporate finance point of view, but we will try to revise so that we remind ourselves on these issues. Okay. So, a contract is a legally binding agreement which recognizes and governs the rights and the duties of the parties involved in that agreement. So it is basically a legally binding agreement. Now, it brings about the duties and the rights. So the duties are to do with what you are supposed to do, and the rights are to do with what is supposed to be done to you. So once that is agreed, it becomes binding, then that is what is called a contract. There's an example that we have in our slide here, where Mr. Kunda offers to purchase a widget from Ms. Sharon at a cost of 1,000. Then Ms. Sharon agrees. This is a contract, whether written or not written. The moment Mr. Kunda proposed to do that and Ms. Sharon accepted, it becomes a contract. So this is a contract as there is an offer and acceptance of that offer. So we'll come to a point where we understand what should be involved for any discussion to qualify to be a contract. We will find that the offer and acceptance become very critical. Without an offer, without an acceptance, even if people can argue, it cannot qualify to be a contract. Are we together?
Yes.
Okay, can we proceed?
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at the importance of contracts in society and the sources of law. Remember, we have already defined what a contract is. One of the key issues, and I remember I saw this question in one of the assignments from your university, where they wanted a student to discuss the importance of contracts in society and the sources of law, just the way it is. Now, one thing that we need to understand is that contracts, because they bring about the duty and the rights, then they govern human behavior. Are we together? That is the major significance of a contract in society. It is telling me that my sound is breaking. Is it correct?
No. now it's fine.
It's clear? Hello?
It's clear.
Oh, thank you.
It was breaking, but it
Okay,
has
yeah,
stopped.
I received the message here that the sound is breaking. Okay,
Yeah.
so we are saying the importance of contracts in society, because a contract brings about duties and the responsibilities of the people that are involved in the contract. Definitely, it governs human behavior. So that is the significance or the importance of a contract in society. Okay.
Okay.
So contract law is the law that governs contracts, both verbal and non-verbal, as well as written and non-written contracts, like in an example that we had. So besides, contracts in society regulate and govern our behavior, just as we mentioned earlier on. Okay. So let's look at the sources of law. Generally, there are four basic sources of contract law: the constitution of that country, for instance, our Zambian constitution, the federal and state statutes, the federal and state case laws, and administrative laws. So these are the four sources of laws pertaining to contract. Meaning whether it is in Zambia, wherever you are, at least one of these will be used as the source of laws pertaining to contracts. For our purposes, the most important of these are the ones that we will examine at some length, are case laws and statutes. For the sake of our syllabus, we need to understand mostly case laws and statutes. Okay.
Okay.
During our commercial and business law, I'm sure we discussed the Constitution as a primary source of law, but we can quickly look at it. What is a constitution? It is a set of rules or fundamental principles of a nation. This is the most fundamental source of law. And there will be no law that will be enacted that will contradict with any piece of law from the Constitution. Automatically, that law will be null and void. So the Constitution becomes the principle or the fundamental source of law. It is chapter 1 of the laws of Zambia. Okay, so, excuse me, that is one of it. The supremacy of the Constitution has been pronounced upon by the Zambian judiciary in a number of cases. There are a lot of cases that were taken to the courts of law, and because whatever was involved in that agreement contradicted with the Constitution, and then the Constitution had to rule. So whatever was agreed became null and void. Okay. Number 2, the federal and state statutes. What are these? Statutes are laws enacted by legislature, such as the US Congress. Statutes are typically the place to begin research of primary legal sources. In Zambia, we have got a lot of enactments, okay? So those are also sources of law, as long as they are in line with the Constitution. We have got federal again and state case laws. State case laws are also called judicial decisions. We look at what was decided by the courts previously. They are also called precedents. We refer to them. What did the court say in this situation? So the courts are also a source of law in the sense that the interpretation of statutes as they are applied in the courts results in the creation of binding judicial precedents. So that is another source of law. Okay. The last source of law is administrative laws. What are administrative laws? These are branch of law governing the creation and operation of administrative agencies. The moment you create a certain body as an agency, then you put up the regulations, guidelines that will govern their operations. Those are called administrative laws because they are meant to be used by administrative agencies. Okay. So they also become sources of law. Unless if there's a question before we proceed to our next point where we look at the sources of contract laws. Now we single it down to contract laws.
No question.
Okay, so we can proceed.
Yes.
Sources of contract laws. So the above general sources of law contain specific articles and chapters that deal with contract laws. All the four sources of laws that we have looked at, they have got now specific articles, specific chapters that are concerned with contracts. So we have one, the Sale of Goods Act of 1893. That is one of an article, that is one of a chapter that deals with contracts. When we are trading, when we are engaging in any business, we use the Sale of Goods Act of 1893. So what is it? It is an act that provides a framework for the relationship between the buyer and the seller. If we want to understand the duties and the rights of a buyer and the duties and the rights of a seller, the Sale of Goods Act of 1893 stipulates, then we are able to know. It is very important to understand these things, especially when we are to do business. Because sometimes people take advantage of our ignorance and we are able to lose it out. So we study that, then we are able to know. Then we have the real estate or common law. That is another article or chapter that helps us to understand what is involved in agreements. Okay. In real estate law, real property, also known as realty or real estate or immovable assets or properties, refers to property that is intrinsically linked to land. So all the properties that are connected to land, they are called immovable properties or real estates. If you are dealing in real estate, then the real estate common law becomes your Bible all the time. Then you are safe. Okay. So the common law and the real estate law regulate the liability of an owner in regards to the safety of a third person party on their property. So you understand how or the rights and the responsibilities of the tenants. That's where you study. We see sometimes people receive just eviction notice today, tomorrow you should vacate my property. And people start up and down because they don't know their rights as tenants. Study this article, then you'll be able to challenge such decisions and fair treatments. Are we together?
Yes.
Okay, so the third one is service. Common law. Now we are dealing with businesses that are involved in provision of services. So in the United States, they have got two primary sources of law governing contracts: the common law and the Uniform Commercial Code. So that's what they use. The Uniform Commercial Code is Article 2. It governs contracts between a merchant and the seller of goods. Now, essentially, the Uniform Commercial Code contains two sets of rules for contracts. The first set involves the rules for everyone, and the second set involves the rules for merchants. So meaning those that are trading and those that are interacting or that have anything to do with those that are trading. So you know where are you standing. If you are a merchant, then you use the second set of laws. If you are just a citizen, meaning either a customer, you can use the first part of the UCC, Article 2. Okay. So that is what is involved in that. Now, there's what is called the restatement of conflicts of laws. Okay. This one is the second circuit that says when conducting a federal common law, choice of law analysis, absent guidance from Congress, we may consult the restatement. So if all these that we have discussed, they have nothing to do with the issue that you are involved in, they have provided an option. The law allows you to consult a restatement of conflicts of law, because what we have discussed, they don't have anything to do with what has happened now. Then we can consult it. Then it will be able to provide. So if we find anything that is related to the problem, we can use it and it becomes binding. The law allows that. Are we together?
Yes.
So that is the restatement of conflicts of law. It is just an option that can be used in an event that the previous pieces of laws we have discussed have nothing to solve the problem at hand. Then we can consult it. We have statutory laws. So the Uniform Commercial Code Common Law Contract Principles govern contracts for real estate and for services. Now, obviously, very important areas of law, because just this UCC, it is able to tackle those that are in the service industry and those that are in real estate. So you can use it either if you are in the service industry or you are in real estate. The UCC is able to be used. Okay. So let's look at the basic framework of the UCC, unless if there's a question or a comment so far.
No, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you. So now, the UCC is a comprehensive set of laws governing all commercial transactions in the United States. So it is a universal piece of law that governs anything to do with business in the United States. It is not a federal law, but a uniformly adopted state law. It covers everything pertaining to business in the United States. Okay. So we can quickly look at the three basic contract types that we are supposed to cover under our syllabus. In the contracts, they are what are called fixed price contracts. Fixed price contracts. Okay. These are contracts with a fixed price. The buyer doesn't take on much risk, because you are told this contract, it is about 10,000. That's all. You know, this is great for the project's risk register, but not so great for the project budget. Because in an event that things change, then you'll have a problem because the price is fixed. There will be no issues of contract variations, what and what. No, everything is fixed in the fixed price contract. The next one is the cost reimbursable contracts. Cost reimbursable contracts. With this one, you pay the vendor for the actual cost of the works. So you only tell them, you can build a house for me, then I'll pay you. You don't know how much you pay, not until they tell you how much they have incurred. Then you pay that. This one, it's better off, especially in situations where inflation is very fluctuating. Then you, okay. The third one is time and materials contracts. This one was purchased plus a per day or per hour rate for time spent. So the person will tell you, okay, we have spent in terms of material so much, but we also spent our time to work on this project. So if it is charging per day, you calculate that. If it is charging per hour, you calculate how many hours were spent to do that project or to execute that contract. That's how you charge the time and material contracts. Unless there's a question or a comment on the 3 types of contracts that we are supposed to cover: the fixed price contract, the cost reimbursable contracts, and the time and materials contracts. Okay, so we can proceed to our next learning objective. They want us to discuss the basic contract taxonomy. So, contracts can be formed, expressed, and enforced in a variety of ways. A taxonomy of contracts has developed that is useful in lumping together like legal consequences. So we are going to look at some of the guiding principles that are basic to a contract. So in general, contracts are classified along these dimensions: explicitness of the contract. Now, this is concerned with the degree to which the agreement is manifest to those not part to it. It's explicitity. There are 2 contracts: express and implied contracts. Express contract. An express contract is a contract in which the terms are spelled out directly. We have agreed, you will be doing this, you'll be doing this, you'll be doing this. Me, I'll be doing this, I'll be doing this, I'll be doing this. I should not do this, I should not do this. You should not do this, you should not do this. These are called express contracts under the explicitness of a contract. There's an example that I've given us there. For example, an agreement to purchase your neighbor's car for $500 and to take title next Monday is an express contract. These terms are coming out and we have agreed to them. Implied contracts. An implied contract is a contract that is inferred from the actions of the parties, from the way the parties to the contract are behaving. Then you raise a contract. There was an issue that was in court some years back where a woman was seen coming from a man's house for 2 months. Then there was an argument of whether those people were married. And then they went to court. Under express contracts, it failed that there was no marriage. But under implied contracts, it was deemed marriage, and the woman won. So implied contracts are to do with the actions of the parties. From those actions, the court can rule that a contract existed. Okay. So under the contract that we are discussing, so we have covered one part of a contract, explicitness. We look at mutuality. It takes into account whether promises are exchanged by two parties. That is mutuality. There should be mutual agreement for it to be considered a contract. Enforceability is the degree to which a given contract is binding. How binding is our agreement? Then completion considers whether the contract is yet to be performed or the obligations have been fully discharged by one or both parties. Unless if there's a question or a comment.
Yeah, just that
Okay, you can go ahead.
the network wasn't quite well the time you were trying to explain on the basic on fixed price contracts.
Yes.
Would we put a scenario of a company and a supplier to go into an fixed prices on the goods that they'll be getting from that supplier, whether the economy is biting or whether the economy gets good, the prices go down, the prices will remain fixed until the end of that contract.
Exactly. And actually, this is some of the challenges that we had in some councils. They entered into contracts with certain filling stations to supply fuel.
Oh, yes.
Yes. But what was happening is when fuel prices go up, filling stations raise the prices. But if they signed a fixed price contract, that should not have been the case.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so we can proceed?
Yes.
Okay, so we are almost winding up. Let's look at the contract formation. So a contract is a specific promise to another and also a specific demand of that person. So there are two people. There's one who have a demand which is supposed to be fulfilled. So in order to establish the formation contract, contract law asks two principal questions. Did the parties create a valid enforceable contract? Then what remedies are available when one party breaks the contract? So whenever we are signing contracts, we must be very careful to look for these two things. Otherwise, we can lose it out. Okay. Excuse me. So whether a valid enforceable contract has been formed depends in turn on whether the parties reached an agreement, offer and acceptance, consideration, how much was involved, was agreement legal? You cannot enter into an agreement to perform an illegal act. The parties entered into a contract with the capacity to make a contract, contractual capacity. The fifth one, the agreement is in the proper form, something in writing if required. Then we have a binding contract. So a contract can be breached. So what is a breach of contract? A performance but fails to perform her obligation under a contract is said to have breached the contract. So breach of the contract in the contract, then you have breached a contract. Okay. So there are methods for resolving a breach of contract. So number one, you negotiate settlement. Since I've breached a contract, can I make correction of that? Then I settle it. Number two, arbitration. The parties may agree to submit their dispute to a neutral third party who can help them resolve the dispute. Number three, litigation. the party can seek to enforce their contractual rights in the court of law. You go to the court so that the one who has failed performs that until you get the satisfaction you are supposed to get if he did it correctly. So the remedies, there's compensatory damages, where the court awards damage to put the plaintiff in the right position. There's consequential damages, where the court awards damage arising from unusual losses. If the breach made you to lose something, then you have to be compensated for that, what you lost. Then there's liquidated damages. Liquidated damages are damages specified in the contract. When you are signing a contract, you agreed. If you fail to pay me on the 10th, you pay me 10% interest. Those are liquidated damages. Unless if there's a question before we do the last part, the tort. So, what is a tort? We covered this in commercial law. A tort in the legal context means a wrong. Anything wrong that is done to you, that is a tort. Then what should you do if somebody wrongs you? The remedies are damages, meaning a payment of money. Money must be paid to you for being wronged. There's injunction, where the court orders a person to stop doing anything that is wronging you, that is offending you. That is an injunction. So under the tort, there are two remedies. There's damage and injunction. It's either you are paid money, compensated for the wrong that they did to you, or there's an injunction to stop that person, whatever he's doing. So you can choose which one to pick. Unless if there's a question or a comment, before we look at these 5 questions that we have here as for discussion. Okay, so you have 5 questions which you can try to answer using the lecture notes and the discussion that we have done. Then you'll be able to see if there will be any challenge, then you can bring that question we discuss together and answer it together. Unless if there's a comment or a question, this is how we end Unit 3, contracts in corporate finance. Yeah, she has been kicked out. Oh.